All right, well, welcome back to ABA exam review and our latest BCBA exam practice question set, where we're going through this next set together and breaking each question down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Bryson chooses to target a client's aggressive behavior towards siblings as the primary behavior for change. Bryson plans to use a multi-component intervention, but first collects baseline data on frequency of aggression. Baseline data is stable for the first 2 data points, but then starts to ascend rapidly. What should Bryson do? This question is really asking about your baseline data. Now, when taking baseline, when is it best to begin intervention? Well, ideally, you want stable baseline. You want to enter into a stable state where your baseline data is very stable. It's not ascending, it's not descending. It's just very, very predictable. Of course, that's not always possible, right? And so then you have to think about, what is my goal? Okay, and Bryson's goal is to target a client's aggressive behavior towards siblings as the primary behavior for change. So he's going to start decreasing this aggressive behavior. We need to get rid of it. He's going to use a multi-component intervention, and he's taking baseline. So the baseline is stable at first, which is a good sign. You want it to stabilize. However, it then starts to ascend rapidly. So what does that word ascend mean? Does that mean to increase rapidly or decrease? Well, ascending means it's increasing. If it was descending, it would be decreasing. So going back to baseline data, if it's stable, that's great. Let's go ahead and intervene. If our data is ascending on a behavior we're trying to decrease, we should go ahead and intervene immediately, because that behavior is just getting worse. Now, if Bryson saw the baseline data was descending, meaning the behavior was decreasing, there'd be no need for intervention because he's already accomplishing his goal. However, baseline data is starting to ascend rapidly, so what should he do? A, continue taking data until a stable state is reached. If it is actually ascending that rapidly, he needs to go ahead and intervene immediately. This baseline data indicates the aggressive behavior is just getting worse. B, begin the intervention. Yes, let's get to the intervention. Okay, let's start. There's no need to wait any longer. Not only is the behavior not stable, it's getting worse. C, reconsider if his intervention is effective. Well, he's still in baseline. He hasn't intervened yet, so be careful picking that answer. And then D, consider the behavior changed and move on to another behavior. Well, the behavior is certainly changing, just not in the direction you want. So if you're trying to decrease a behavior and your baseline is increasing, you need to go ahead and begin that intervention. Now, that's not true in the opposite, right? If you're trying to increase and your baseline's ascending, that's a good thing. If you're trying to decrease and the baseline's descending, that's a good thing. So you've got to be very careful about this idea of ascending or descending baselines, and you have to relate it back to what is your goal. Harold designs an innovative way to teach kids how to use a computer for basic schoolwork. The kids he works with generally have little to no experience using a computer, so they start with almost no skill at all. However, Harold's baseline data seems to rapidly improve with each participant. What is likely occurring? So we know what? What do we know? Always ask yourself, what do I know? What is the question asking? Ask yourself questions, okay? So it forces you to answer those questions. Harold has an innovative way to teach kids how to use computers. The kids have little to no experience using a computer, so there's almost no skill. So baseline is going to start expectedly probably very low. However, as Harold takes baseline, data is just improving rapidly, meaning these children who previously had no skill are now indicating much higher levels of skill during baseline. What is likely occurring? A, sequence effects. Sequence effects imply that the order of your interventions or your conditions are affecting one another, meaning the order in which intervention 1 and intervention 2 occurred affected the outcome of each subsequent intervention. So sequence effects can occur, especially with withdrawal designs, if you're constantly implementing and withdrawing certain interventions. However, Harold hasn't intervened yet. There is no change in condition. There is no additional sequence, so there can't be a sequence effect. B, carryover effects. Carryover effects say the previous intervention has affected the future intervention, either through learning or getting better, or just the impact of one intervention has now impacted the next intervention. But again, he hasn't intervened yet. What he's doing is he's constantly taking this baseline data on using a computer. But as the kids use the computer, what are they doing? They're practicing. They're practicing and they're learning. So their data is improving because they're practicing. So what is likely occurring is a practice effect. Remember, there's no sequence or carryover effects because he hasn't intervened yet. Sequence effect is the order of your interventions or your conditions. Carryover effects says one condition affected another condition. Practice effects are saying, well, I'm taking data and their data is getting better. I haven't taught anything, but because they're practicing over and over again, they're just naturally getting better. So what is likely occurring is C, practice effects. A dentist teaches his daughter how to brush her own teeth. The daughter quickly learns and becomes proficient at brushing, but tends to only brush for a brief period of time. The dentist is now shaping the behavior to lengthen the time spent brushing. The dentist is doing what? So, what are we looking at here? Well, we know we're shaping. We're shaping some sort of behavior, and the dentist is shaping the behavior. The dentist is shaping his daughter's teeth brushing behavior. So, he's already taught her how to brush teeth, right? The daughter learned. The daughter is proficient, so she knows how to brush. That's not the problem. The problem is the magnitude, right? How long she's brushing. He wants to increase, or she wants to lengthen the time spent brushing. So we know he's shaping, and we know he's shaping magnitude. So if you're shaping magnitude, what is occurring? A, shaping within topographies. So shaping within topographies says I'm not trying to change how the behavior looks. I'm trying to change something about the behavior, some magnitude of the behavior. The size of it, in this case, the length of it, the loudness of it. I'm shaping within the topography. The issue isn't the behavior itself. She can teeth brush. I just need to change how long she's brushing her teeth for. B, shaping across topographies is you're actually changing the look of the behavior, right? So if she was decent at brushing, but she couldn't brush her back teeth, so she only brushes her front teeth, then we'd have to shape across topographies, right? Because the topography just isn't correct yet. C, shaping a new behavior. The behavior isn't new, right? She's good. The topography is good. We have to increase the magnitude of that topography, though. And then D, fading the prompts. We're not fading anything. We're shaping, right? We're not prompting. We're not worried about prompting. We're shaping. And specifically, we're going to be shaping within topographies, right? We need to shape how that behavior is relative to the magnitude of the behavior. We don't need to change so much how it looks, because that's fine, but the magnitude certainly needs to change. Prior to using a restraint procedure, what precautions should a behavior analyst take? Now, restraint is a dicey topic, okay? There are some people who say, well, restraint should never be used in any situation whatsoever. I would just disagree with that because you work long enough with enough different populations and different behaviors. And you know, sometimes restraint at the minimum needs to be included in a crisis plan if things are really getting out of hand. With that said, restraint is very dangerous. It's a very intrusive, can be very harmful, and we've got to be very smart and systematic when using restraint. Specifically, there are many precautions we should take when using restraint. So if you're going to use restraint, what precautions should you take as an analyst? A, behavior analyst should be familiar with the restraint laws in their state. Absolutely. Each state varies on what type of restraint, how long can restraint be, how often can you restrain at all? You've got to know these things. Don't think you're above the law or the laws don't apply because you're an ABA, okay? You need to be familiar. What does the law say about restraint? You better follow that law because things can go very wrong with restraint very quickly, and then you can get in a lot of hot water because you weren't compliant. B, behavior analyst should make sure competence is 100% mastered prior to implementing restraint. Absolutely. If someone is not trained or not well trained or not fully trained, they should not be implementing restraint. You should be trained. You should be verified. Whoever you have implementing restraint should know how to do it 100% with full competence with no risk. Okay, no risk, of course, is never possible. There's always some risk, but you can't send someone who you've trained one time on restraint or who's watched a video on restraint and then ask them to potentially put themselves in a situation where they would need to use restraint. Again, restraint, very intrusive, very dangerous, very serious. C, restraint should never be used in behavior analysis. It's just not true. Restraint is just another tool, okay? Yes, there's issues with restraint. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, we need to take precautions. It's just another tool. Like any other tool, the person wielding the tool ultimately decides how effective it is. So if you're going to wield this tool, you have to know the laws. You have to ensure competence. So both A and B is our answer. Once again, restraint, it's a very serious matter. If you're going to use it, be very smart about it. No legal ramifications. Ensure your competence and only use it as a last resort. Brooke enrolls into an ABA course sequence and begins the supervision process for becoming a behavior analyst. In her excitement, Brooke updates her LinkedIn to say board certified behavior analyst intern. Is this allowed by the BACB? Now this one comes up quite a bit actually. It's pretty common in real life actually, so this is why I put it in here. Okay, and the BACB is very serious about not misrepresenting yourself as an analyst, and they really only want you using those terms, right? BCBA, board certified behavior analyst, only when you've got your certification. Okay, so even saying something like board certified behavior analyst intern, in their view, is misrepresenting herself. So even though Brooke means well, she's not hurting anybody. She can't go ahead and start claiming, well, I'm a board certified behavior analyst intern, because in the BACB's view, okay, she's misrepresenting herself. So is this allowed? A, no, you're not allowed to post on social media sites regarding behavior analysis work. Of course, it's not true. Now there's terms, conditions. You've got to be smart about it. There's rules, but you can certainly post on social media regarding behavior analysis work. B, no, Brooke cannot mischaracterize herself as an analyst. Yes, the board considers this a mischaracterization. The board, what the board says goes. It is what it is. She needs to change. C, no, Brooke should use the acronym instead. Definitely don't use the acronym. It means the same thing. You're representing the same thing. Whether you agree with it or not, it just is what it is. That's the rule. That's the ethical rule. You've got to abide by what the board says. Okay, end of the day, what they say goes. And then D, no, Brooke must have it in writing from the BACB prior to changing her profile. Well, no, I mean, they're not going to give her permission to misrepresent herself. Just don't do it. Okay, you can say behavior analyst intern. When you get into that full trademarked mischaracterization, board certified, BCBA, that's when they have an issue with it. So no, Brooke cannot mischaracterize herself as an analyst. George's girlfriend wants George to take an IQ test to test his intelligence. George is worried about failing the test, so he asks his friend Elaine to take it for him, but he doesn't tell his girlfriend. Elaine ends up taking the test for George. If George's score is the dependent variable, Elaine is what? This is very important, right? George's score is the dependent variable. So that's what we're measuring. That's what his girlfriend is measuring. That's what the IQ test is measuring. And so in order to measure that accurately, we need the independent variable to be the only thing impacting the dependent variable. Now, it's unclear what the independent variable is. I guess we could say it's the IQ test. Maybe it's the questions on the IQ test. And those are those are the independent variables affecting the dependent variable. It's not necessarily clear, but all we know is that in order for this to be accurate, right, and precise and valid, we need the independent variable to be the thing affecting the dependent variable, which is George's score. However, Elaine comes in, and she's the one who takes the test. So George's score is manipulated by Elaine. Elaine's an extraneous variable. She's not controlled for, and she has an effect on the dependent variable. So what do we call Elaine? Well, a confound. A confound is something that affects our dependent variable that we haven't controlled for, that we haven't planned for, that we haven't manipulated, and it's affecting analysis, it's affecting outcome, it's affecting the dependent variable. Elaine should not be a factor in the dependent variable. Only the test questions or the independent variable should be affecting the DV. Elaine is B, also a dependent variable? No, because she is having through manipulation an impact on the dependent variable, on the results in the analysis and the change in the dependent variable. Elaine's work is actually changing George's score. That's the problem. C, the independent variable. Elaine is not the independent variable. The independent variable is what we control. We have control over the IV. We have control over the IQ test and what test we give George. We have no control over Elaine, and yet she is what ends up affecting the dependent variable. Since we don't have control, she's an extraneous variable, and she affects the DV, Elaine is now a confound. After 3 days of observation at a department store, the general manager refers to one employee as lazy and unconcerned with the customer's happiness. This type of observation could be described as what? So when thinking about observations, we have to think of the goals of science. We have description, we have prediction, and we have control. Description, you're simply literally empirically describing something, right? You see something, you describe it. Prediction, you're drawing correlations. You're drawing relationships between two things, right? This affects this. Control, you're actually establishing a functional relationship through experimentation. So what is the general manager doing? Well, he just observes and then says, well, the employee is lazy and unconcerned with the customer's happiness. He doesn't make any sort of correlation. He doesn't draw any comparisons. He doesn't try to hypothesize why. He doesn't experiment. He just says this employee is lazy and unconcerned. Based on his empirical opinion, right, his observation, he thinks the employee is lazy and unconcerned. So what could this observation be described as? Well, A, descriptive. It's just describing the employee. He's not trying to represent or hypothesize correlation. He's not saying they're lazy and unconcerned because of this. He's just describing the employee. He's not demonstrating control because he hasn't manipulated anything. There's no experimentation happening. And there's no observation of random chance. He's done it 3 days, so the likelihood that it's random is decreasing every time he observes more and more, right? The more observations, the more samples he takes, the less likely it's due to random chance. So the employee, lazy, unconcerned, is just a descriptive observation. A brand new behavior analyst is planning their first independent task analysis. The behavior analyst wants to teach their client how to make purchases at a grocery store. Which of the following is not a priority when designing the task analysis? So when you're designing a task analysis, what are you trying to prioritize? Okay. All task analyses need to be individualized, meaning you're using the task analyses to create this behavior chain, and you're picking steps for a complete behavior. So in order to pick those steps in a way that are going to be teachable, what do you need to worry about? Okay, because and remember, the question is asking what is not a priority, meaning 3 of these will be a priority. So A, the client's age. Is the client's age a priority? Sure. Now development is probably more important, but you should also consider the client's age. Okay, it should be developmentally appropriate, of course, and then age appropriate also plays a role. B, the client's skill level. Well, absolutely, right? Skill level 100%. Skill level is going to impact everything about your chain. A more skilled person might need a different chain than a less skilled person. What about the convenience of the task analysis? The convenience we're not very concerned with. Okay, it's not supposed to be convenient for us. That's not who we're worried about. And then D, the experience of the learner. Experience does matter because experience is going to affect skill. With age comes experience. They all kind of play into each other's hands. What doesn't matter and what is not a priority is the convenience. Okay, our convenience is not our major concern whatsoever. Excellent. Thanks for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Please like and subscribe. Let us know when you pass. Work hard, study hard. I'll see you soon.